Hello and welcome to CUTV. Today we're joined by the Independent MEP for the South East region, Diane James. Thank you for joining us, Diane. As an Independent MEP for the South East region, what's your vision for a post-Brexit Britain?
Well, the assumption is going to be clean Brexit because that's what I want. As I said in the debate this evening, my vision for the United Kingdom is a very positive one. And all of the speakers who spoke to the motion from the perspective we took, which is that there was nothing to regret, there was everything to celebrate in terms of the referendum outcome, I think it's a very, very positive future ahead of the United Kingdom. Every single time I'm asked a question about, could we have arrived at a different conclusion, a different outcome, I go back to the point, most people were sensible enough to say, can we achieve everything that supposedly the EU delivers, but without the political control? Now, if that had been on offer, that would have been an interesting dilemma for people. But what they saw was that it was the political control from the European Union that they had to lose, that they had to walk away from. And that's why I think this issue of, and the phrasing of, an amicable divorce is what I want to see. I want to see a trading relationship with the European Union. But equally, I'm looking forward to seeing a sovereign, independent United Kingdom able to make the sorts of decisions that are going to be important for decades to come, outside of what 27 other member states have got to arrive at in terms of consensus before the UK can do anything.
What would you say against the claims that the Vote Leave campaign was run on what's being dubbed as alternative facts, notably the implication that the 350 million that was spent each week on the EU would in turn be used to fund the NHS?
Okay.
Isn't
it interesting? I'm going to come back at you with a comment before I answer your question. Isn't it interesting that at the moment the Liberal Democrats are coming forward with this proposal of effectively a hypothecated tax increase, which they will then immediately put all that money back into the NHS. The United Kingdom doesn't work on hypothecated taxation. We raise gross tax revenues and then our government decides on how that's going to be spent. I think the point that the Leave campaign made, and it was the Vote Leave campaign, it was just one element of it, but albeit the officially designated campaign, they were making the point that hundreds of millions should come back to the UK on the basis of a referendum outcome to leave, and that money should, and in their opinion, 350 million of it they wanted to see going into the NHS.
But is should and could enough? What about would? I feel like a lot of people voted partly on that basis.
I have not yet found a single individual, and bear in mind I was doing 2 or 3 campaign meetings per week in the evenings and sometimes during the day. Not one single person, in hundreds of people I met, said to me, I have voted to leave the European Union because I believe 350 million is going to go back to the NHS. Their issues were more about the waste of money, the inefficient use of money by the EU, and the fact that if we were able to withhold our contributions, withhold the costs that we have to cover, which are never disclosed to the UK public, that the sort of monies that the NHS actually needs, and here, they were plucking a figure, 350 million out of the air there, that was the sort of value that could be put back into a much warranted and a much needed and a much utilised service here.
Do you think post-Brexit Britain offers various opportunities for particularly students? Is there anything for us to look forward to?
I think there's a huge amount to look forward to. I mean, a number of aspects that people who claim that all of a sudden the system is and the opportunities are going to close down because we leave the European Union, that's complete nonsense. You don't have to be a European Union member state to be part of the Erasmus programme, or now the Erasmus Plus. You don't need to be a member of the European Union to be part of the Horizon 2020 programme. There are issues such as the huge contingent of students from non-EU countries that choose to study here, and regretfully that figure's going down because the only way that the UK government could arrive at an immigration target that they set unilaterally was effectively to penalise non-EU students. So if anything, I look at all of the universities around the country that have formed relationships, partnerships with fellow universities in South America, in Asia, in Singapore, in Australia, Canada, the US. They're not just focused on the EU, and that's what I really want to try and drive home to students. Be open-minded about this. Don't fall into the trap of just looking through the future through EU blue and yellow glasses. take a step back. It's a big wide world out there. You know, I've been fortunate enough to live in the US, to live in Dubai, to work in New Zealand, to work in Geneva, to work in Frankfurt, you know, and now in Brussels and Strasbourg. It's a big wide world out there, and that doesn't stop happening just because we leave the European Union.
Well, that's definitely a positive.
Yeah.
Moving on slightly, across all parties, MPs have called on Theresa May to rescind Donald Trump's invitation for a state visit. Do you agree?
No, I don't agree. I don't agree. He is a democratically elected president of the United States. We may not like him. There may be people who don't like him. There are lots of presidents, prime ministers, heads of government, dictators, despots, whatever you want, but they are elected representatives of those countries. To start deciding here in the United Kingdom who we're not going to invite and who we will allow to come into this country, I think is hypocritical, to say the least. Because, you know, if I had my way, I would be questioning, you know, how can we allow someone like the president of, say, Zimbabwe to even consider coming here or even appearing on the media? You know, how do we allow the Chinese premier to come here after the annexation of Tibet? You know, the problems with rendition of people from Hong Kong. I think we've just got to remain open-minded and respect that the electoral college system in the United States made Trump their president. It's fact simple, fact over. Therefore, if we want to, you know, send a really rude diplomatic message, which is you're not welcome here, I really don't think that reflects very well on the United Kingdom at all.
But, I mean, some people might argue, to what extent does the UK need to sacrifice their sort of liberal values in order to forge trade deals? Are we sort of giving a mandate to some of Trump's misogynistic comments?
A trade deal with the largest economy in the world is not something you walk away from. Whether everyone can have their views on political figures, global political figures, on political systems, on how countries run themselves, the language that heads of state use. You know, you cite Hungary for a moment. You know, nobody's even citing that we ought to stop him coming. And yet he's made some pretty abhorrent comments for some people. So I go back to the point. There is what could be achieved by, in some way, penalising the America, the United States of America, by saying we will not accept your president coming here. I really do not see any logic in that at all. We have a diplomatic mechanism in terms of ambassadors and, you know, diplomatic channels to send the sort of message that maybe you're thinking of and that you're intending to convey to me. That's the mechanism to use. You don't start declining visits or saying you're not allowed in here, because the reciprocal action I just don't think would be helpful, and it sends the wrong message.
So in light of Brexit, you're now facing a scenario of no longer being an MEP. What's in store for you now, if not politics?
I'd like to think it would involve politics, but I genuinely do not know what that might be. The last 4 years have been pretty exhausting for me. I fought a by-election, parliamentary by-election. I've campaigned to become a candidate for the European Union elections. I've then campaigned in the European Union elections itself and been one of the party members at that time that secured the highest proportion of MEPs for the United Kingdom. I then moved on to the general election. I then moved on to the referendum campaign. At the moment, I'm catching up. I'm catching breath. I'm taking time out. I'm still very focused on what I do. I'm a member of the Constitution Committee, which is now absolutely pivotal, because every time the committee meets, it's all about Brexit. It's all about the impact of Brexit on the EU Constitution, and equally the impact of the EU Constitution in terms of the British Constitution going forward. So I've got a very, very busy time ahead. Quite frankly, on May, whatever it might be, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, I might just take some time out.
Yeah. I've got a final question. Essentially, there's been a lot of talks about bullying in Parliament.
Bullying
in Parliament. I was just wondering what your experience as a female MEP has been.
Okay, this has got nothing whatsoever reflective on UKIP, the party I used to be with. I would say, however, that the attitude in the European Parliament can be misogynistic in certain occasions. I don't think there are enough women represented in politics in Europe by any call. I think it is changing. I certainly don't agree with quotas, but it comes down to the glass ceiling for women in politics is very low indeed and very hard to break through. And it's going to take more time and more people like myself to actually try and crack it and lift it.
Thank you so much.
That's all right, no worries.